Observa la histórica entrevista en idioma inglés al entonces presidente de la República Dominicana, Leonel Fernández. Esa entrevista la hizo un veterano periodista norteamericano en el programa Douglas Scruggs. Observen el primer video.
The new president-elect of the Dominican Republic, Leonel Fernández, takes office on August 16th. It has been said that he will bring the flavor of New York City, where he lived in his youth, to his country. Immediately after his election, Fernández announced the, quote, the government of modernization and development, unquote, that would end authoritarian rule in the Dominican Republic. There's a lot of hope riding on his administration. Leonel Fernández is here, and I'm pleased to have him here to talk about his region of the world as well as his administration, coming as it does following a long tenure by Joachim Balazer. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yours is an amazing story. And if I could say so, we would say normally this is a great American story, but this is a great Dominican story. 8 years old, you come to the United States. Lived where?
Well, I lived in on 95th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. That's mid-Manhattan.
Yeah. And went to school at what?
Well, first I went to PS 75, it's a public school on 95th Street and West End Avenue. And after that, I went to junior high school 118, which is Joan of Arc, 93rd Street between Amsterdam and Columbus Avenue. And then I entered high school, Brandeis High School. That's when I went back to the Dominican Republic.
Why did you go back?
Well, I was living with my mother and brother, who's older than me. And my mother had two jobs. She was working as a nurse during nighttime from 7 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning. And then she was working at a factory from 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And so we didn't have too much time to spend together. And so my mother decided that I should go back.
Your mother was worried what might happen to you in the streets.
No, and that she didn't have the opportunity, really. I mean, two jobs, we were alone. My mother was divorced, and she just couldn't handle both of her sons here.
Is she alive today?
Yes, she is.
So she has seen you be the president-elect of the Dominican Republic?
Yes, she has, and she is very happy about it, of course.
You had never run for public office before?
No, I had not, even though I've been involved in politics for 25 years now. It has to do basically with the political environment in the Dominican Republic. During the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, democratic processes was not well understood or accepted in the Dominican Republic. There were irregularities in the elections, and basically one party was in control, and only after 1978 was there alternative in the election process, and a different party came to power. So, as you know, in the Dominican Republic, as in the rest...
the Democratic Revolutionary Party?
Yes, at the beginning, the Dominican Revolutionary Party. But in 1973, there was a split. And then we formed a new organization. We founded a new organization, which is the Dominican Liberation Party. I was a founder of this organization back from 1973. But I was going to say that in the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, in the Dominican Republic, as well as in the rest of Latin America, people were considering more the possibilities of social revolutions instead of coming to power through electoral processes. So it has been a major change that has taken place. We now share democratic values. We believe in democratic institutions, but during the 15, 20 years before that, not really. And for that reason, I never really was even interested in getting elected into public office.
Because there was no democracy in a sense.
Exactly, there was no democracy.
So Dominican Republic essentially went from Trujillo to Balaguer, who's been in power for most of the time since then.
Well, after Trujillo's death, the leader of our party, Juan Bosch, was elected president back in 1962. But after 7 months only in office, he was overthrown by a coup. In 65, there was a massive revolt in the Dominican Republic, but it was ended with President Johnson sending the U.S. troops back in 65. Then Balaguer really started his regime in 1966. And he was there for three periods, continuous periods, from 66 to 78. Now in 78, the Dominican Revolutionary Party won the elections.
Right.
And this is when things become more pluralistic in the Dominican political scene. People had high expectations that the PRD would introduce changes in the Dominican political landscape. But the PRD became a failure. Economically, and it didn't have a solution to the social demands of the population. So Joaquin Balaguer came back to power through elections in 1986, and he has been in power for the last 10 years.
Well, what's amazing is that you have, I assume you are in some ways a protege of Juan Bosch.
Well, yes, in some way I should say Juan Bosch was already a highly respected intellectual figure, former president, and the most prolific writer in the Dominican Republic, the most well-known and respected intellectual. So I was very young. I was 18, 19 years old when I began to participate actively in politics, and I was discovered by him somehow and integrated into the party's newspaper and taught by him.
You were a lawyer by profession?
I'm a lawyer by profession, yes.
And then there's Balaguer, who, his arch rival is Bosch, and they have been these grand titans in Dominican politics, yes?
Yes, yes, they have.
So there's an election, you come in second. So then there's a runoff. You've already had Juan Bosch's support, and then you get Balaguer's support. How did you do that?
Well, the reason is this. For the first time in Dominican politics, we have an electoral system which the French call the ballotage, which means that you need an absolute majority of the votes to win. So if you don't win in the first round, there needs to be a runoff. Now, in the runoff, which took place 45 days after the elections, national elections on May 16, Balaguer has had a major confrontation with the leader of the Revolutionary Party, who happened to be the other candidate,
Peña Gómez.
Peña Gómez. And they have had also a historical confrontation through the years. So for Balaguer, it was easier, and it was more according to his perspectives of Dominican politics, to handle me his support, the support of his party, than to Peña Gómez.
Did you have to pay a price for that support?
Absolutely. Dr. Balaguer indicated that he was supporting our candidacy without any conditionalities, that he was doing it for patriotic reasons. He believed that if the other party would have won the elections, it would have meant catastrophe to the Dominican Republic, in the sense that they do not have a modernization program, that they would have interrupted all the construction program, public construction program that has been implemented by the Balaguer administration. And he knows that with our government, there is a combination of continuity and change. Continuity in the sense that all the major public construction programs will have to be continued, but change in the sense that we need to strengthen our democratic institutions, that things must be more transparent, that we have to attack corruption, but that we represent a continuous flow in Dominican history.
But the corruption would be part of the Balaguer administration, would it not, that you'd be fighting?
Well, it's part of Dominican political system, not only Balaguer. It was also part of the Dominican Revolutionary Party's administrations. And this is a major challenge we have, how to eliminate corruption within the Dominican political system.
What do you hope to do with the economy?
Well, we have certain sectors of our economy that are already operating quite well. Tourism and the free trade zones. What we need to do is to maintain stability on the macroeconomic indicators. This is a major element, talking about holding down inflation, exchange rate, and keeping things smooth as they are now, especially in those indicators. The other thing would be to reactivate the productive sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, and reorganize the Dominican economy to make it export-oriented.
What's its primary export now?
Right now, we are, well, traditionally has been sugar, but lately we have been exporting more agricultural products like tobacco and coffee and cocoa, basically. But our main exports is through the free trade zones, textiles, apparel, footwear, through the free trade zones.
You obviously have, because of your experience in the United States, the fact you live here, the fact you speak English so fluently, you have a good relationship with Americans. You know Dr. Kissinger, and you know other Americans who either have some investment in the Dominican Republic. What's the relationship between, and what relationship do you hope to establish between the Dominican Republic and the United States?
Well, there
and
has...
the United States economic interest.
Economic interest. Well, I think there is a long tradition of relationship between both of our nations. And of course, for me, having lived in the States and being somehow bilingual and bicultural is an asset for the Dominican government. I've also paid close attention to U.S. foreign policy towards Latin America and the Caribbean in particularly. And right now I will define a common agenda between the Dominican Republic and the United States in terms of immigration, controlling drug trafficking in the area, human rights and democracy, cultural exchange, and environmental protection. And for us to promote the Dominican Republic within the United States in terms of tourism and in terms of foreign investments towards the Dominican Republic. Tourism in our country has become a major attraction to Europeans. We have Germans, Italians, French traveling to the Dominican Republic. But for some reason, we have not been able yet to attract U.S. tourism to the Dominican Republic, even though Dr. Kissinger and many of the U.S. celebrities, Barbara Walters, travel to the Dominican Republic and they stay in Casa de Campo. But we need to promote more the Dominican Republic in order to attract tourism back to our country.
Oscar de la Renta has been a friend of Dominican Republic.
Well, Oscar de la Renta was born in the Dominican Republic, and I say he's one of our best promoters. Oscar de la Renta is a natural ambassador to the Dominican Republic. He hosts different social activities, and he establishes contacts between Dominicans and these U.S. celebrities.
When you look at your friendship for the United States and you look at our policy in the Caribbean, does it strike the right note from your perspective as a Dominican?
Well, as you know, there are certain programs in the economic side that have been beneficial to the Dominican Republic. For example, there's the Caribbean Basin Initiative, which was implemented back from 1984. This has been the framework for the operations of the free trade zones. So this has been a positive. Right now, there are many changes going on. After NAFTA was signed, there was a meeting of the heads of state of Latin America in Miami in 1994, and there's a timetable to establish a free trade zone in the whole hemisphere. We're talking about free trade with an hemispheric integration. So this is our main challenge for the next 10 years. In terms of the Dominican Republic, relations are good. In the past, during the Cold War, there were some misunderstandings and I would say some mistakes within U.S. foreign policy towards the region. For example, the 1965 revolt. It was mistakenly as a communist revolt. It was not. It was a democratic. Yes, it was basically to restore the Juan Bosch regime, which was overthrown by a coup. You can see it with the Aristide policy. The U.S. Was able to return Aristide back to power in 1993, I think.
And even though the United States felt necessary to bring the troops down to do that, it met with approval in the Dominican Republic, which is, most people know, the Dominican Republic and Haiti share the island.
Well, yes, somehow, at least it didn't get the rejection from the Dominican government for the U.S. troops, the UN troops really, to return Aristide back to power. But what I was trying to say is that there is some sort of historical parallelism between Juan Bosch and Aristide, both elected, both overthrown by a coup 7 months after they were elected, but the U.S. government in '65 sent troops to prevent Juan Bosch to return to power. It sent troops in 1993 to return Aristide to power. The reason, the Cold War.
The Cold War's over, so therefore
there is a different U.S. foreign policy towards the region, which I think is more appropriately and more in accordance to the region's interests.
it doesn't see the fear of communism the way it did.
Not anymore. I think the Cuban Revolution played a major role in this.
What about Castro? How long do you think he can remain in power in Cuba?
Well, you never know. There is always uncertainty with Fidel. After perestroika and glasnost in the Soviet Union and all the Eastern European countries collapsed, everyone was saying that the next term was Castro. He has survived for a couple of years. You never know. But we do think that the future of the hemisphere and the future of the world is democracy. And what we suggest is perhaps a democratic opening for Cuba.
When you were 17 and living in Manhattan, and if someone had come to you at that time and said you can either be a point guard for the Knicks or you can be president of the Dominican Republic, which would you have chose?
Well, at that time, point guard for the Knicks, definitely.
You maintain your great affinity and affection for the Knicks?
Yes, I do. I follow up the NBA games back in the Dominican Republic.
On cable, or having on satellite television, or how do you do it?
Cable TV.
On cable
We're
TV.
fortunate enough to have cable TV, so we are very much aware of the details of what's going on in the U.S. I follow up baseball. I follow up the Knicks games and everything. So,
Are there many Dominican players in the major leagues?
yes, in baseball, yes. We even have, for the first time, a major league manager. Felipe Alou from the Expos, Montreal Expos, is a manager. And one of the coaches of the New York Mets is also Dominican, Rafael Landestoy.
And there's a large Dominican population here in New York.
Yes, yes.
And in New Jersey as well? Or is it primarily in
Primarily in New York, even though the Dominican community is extending all through the eastern coast of the United States. We also have a community in Providence, Rhode Island, in Boston, Lawrence, in the eastern coast, and the last few years, a very important and significant Dominican community in South Florida. Yes.
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast, and look forward to talking to you again on your next visit.
Well, thank you so much.
It's an interesting time to watch what's happening in the Caribbean when you see a country move as it has from a long-time leader who to someone, you're what, 42, 43?
I'm 42 right now, yes.
Who looks forward to an opportunity to change the direction of his country. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much once again.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A seguidas, el próximo video fue en una entrevista antes de ser presidente, o sea, puede ser en el año 1996, pero justo antes de las elecciones. Observen.
Sobra para impugnar la legalidad de esas elecciones. Y no lo digo yo, sino que hay una literatura abundante, incluso en los Estados Unidos, donde se cuestiona la legalidad y la legitimidad de ese proceso electoral. Hay un texto que se llama Demonstration Elections, o sea, un libro sobre las elecciones publicado por una casa editorial pequeña que queda en Boston, donde se da cuenta también de los trucos y las maniobras fraudulentas que se emplearon en los comicios de 1966 y cómo inclusive participaron en aquel proceso electoral exiliados cubanos que habían tenido experiencia ya en procesos fraudulentos en Cuba y cómo transmitieron esas técnicas fraudulentas aquí en la República Dominicana. Pero en el año de 1970, Freddy, no habían condiciones en nuestro país para que se pudiesen efectuar comicios libres. Y por esa razón el profesor Bosch, que estaba en Europa, regresó al país vía Curazao, incluso fue detenido en Curazao durante 48 horas. Se le prohibió la entrada durante 48 horas al profesor Bosch. En el año de 1974, el Acuerdo de Santiago, presidido por el PRD y Peña Gómez, 48 horas antes de la celebración de los comicios, decidió retirarse porque no habían las garantías constitucionales mínimas para participar en ese proceso. Los militares fueron lanzados a las calles exhibiendo banderas coloradas, banderas rojas, con lo que evidentemente se ponía de relieve que el proceso estaba viciado de antemano. Y en el año de 1978, cuando finalmente se pudo producir una alternabilidad en el poder, no fue porque la Junta Central Electoral tuvo las condiciones o exhibía las garantías legales como para que se pudiese dar esa transferencia de poder como resultado de la voluntad popular expresada en las urnas, sino que fue la intervención, si se quiere, de fuerzas extranacionales, la presencia de fuerzas extranacionales, el presidente Carlos Andrés Pérez y el propio presidente Jimmy Carter en la época, quienes tuvieron que intervenir para que efectivamente lo que fue la expresión del pueblo dominicano en las urnas fuera reconocida. Incluso el doctor Marino Vinicio Castillo, que tuvo un rol protagónico en aquellos acontecimientos y que reclamaba los intereses de su partido, estuvo en desacuerdo con la decisión final que se adoptó, el famoso fallo histórico que despojaba al partido ganador de 4 senadurías, de manera que ese proceso no fue lo suficientemente limpio. Cuando aquí se ha estado planteando el problema de la legalidad de los procesos electorales, no se trata de una cosa utópica o ilusoria. Estamos hablando de lo que ha sido la realidad histórica contemporánea en la República Dominicana.
En ambos videos se puede observar cómo el presidente Leonel Fernández hizo gala de su sólida formación, preparación académica, mostrando un excelente control emocional. Además, el doctor Fernández sigue siendo inigualable en su manejo comunicacional y conocedor de los temas principales, tanto nacionales como internacionales, que tienen que ver mucho con las naciones, con los países. Y me atrevo a decir que sin lugar a dudas, después del doctor Joaquín Balaguer, no ha existido otro líder como el doctor Leonel Fernández. Para los demás, humilde, cultos y agradecido por la obra de gobierno que dejó implantada en el país y respeto que muestra a los demás ciudadanos. Es un hombre fino en el trato, no ofende a ningún ciudadano, hasta sus más connotados enemigos, que yo digo que Leonel, hay personas enemigas de él, pero no él tener enemigos, por lo menos la forma que se muestra. Es que su versatilidad para la palabra es indiscutible. Responde sin titubeo, demostración del conocimiento de los principales temas. Muchos pues, también lo describen como un gladiador político con una preparación académica muy fina y también ese dote de intelectualidad que muestra. Yo le dejo una pregunta. ¿Qué les pareció o qué les parecieron esos videos? Además que le llamo a conectarse, darle like y suscribirse a esta plataforma Procesando la Información para seguir compartiendo contenido de calidad.